It's week 9, and it is time to talk about how to improve your fantasy roster. The trade deadline is coming up pretty soon, so it's imperative to always be making moves on the waiver wire to help improve your roster. Before we go over the players that you should be adding, let's go over a quick recap of what we saw in week number 9. For starters, we saw JSN break out for a huge performance. He had 7 receptions on 13 targets for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. With DK Metcalf out because of injury, we saw JSN have a season high in targets and obviously put up a huge performance in overtime for the Seahawks, who unfortunately had a tough beat versus the Rams. We also saw Mike Gesicki, tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals, put up a monster game. He had 5 receptions on 6 targets, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, with T. Higgins out, Gesicki was the prime beneficiary of this, and if Higgins was to miss any time, Gesicki is someone that you could look at, especially if you are in need of a tight end. We saw also DeAndre Hopkins from the Kansas City Chiefs put up a huge Monday night performance. Hopkins put up 8 receptions on 9 targets for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. Looked really good on Monday Night Football. And to put a bow on it, we also saw Rico Dowdle fill in for Ezekiel Elliott, who was a healthy scratch, had 12 rushing attempts for 75 rushing yards, had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 32 yards and a touchdown. As you're looking to make moves in your roster, it's imperative to also analyze and know which players you got to get rid of. The first one you got to get rid of is going to be Romeo Doubs from the Green Bay Packers. It feels like this wide receiver room has been one that it's been hard to assess. Which one outside of Jaden Reed do you start? Is it Christian Watson? Is it Dontavian Wicks? Is it Romeo Doubs? And now it's just hard to really assess because, Jordan Love has been struggling. He obviously looks like he's a little bit banged up. But also with Dobbs, he's had single-digit performances in back-to-back weeks, and with so many better options that are out there, I would much rather cut ties with Romeo Doubs and go for another option there. The other one I'm going to ask you to drop is going to be Alexander Mattison. He had a few weeks there where he had 2 back-to-back performances where he had double-digit productions. He's now coming off 2 back-to-back weeks with single-digit production, and it just doesn't look really good there. I mean, outside of Brock Bowers, there really isn't a Raider that I feel confident in starting. So Alexander Mattison, if you have him, feel free and drop him. Another running back that is in a situation very similar is going to be Ty Chandler. A few weeks ago, the fantasy community at large was more so talking about how Chandler could be a good stash for you as a handcuff behind Aaron Jones, but that just really hasn't panned out. Over the past few weeks, since week number 7, he saw his snap count go from 12% in week 7, 4% in week 8, and he had 0 in week 9. So if you have him as a stash or as a handcuff, I think you are better off letting him go, or maybe even considering Cam Akers from that backfield. This next one that I'm going to recommend is more of an obvious one because of the injury, but also because the position itself is very deep. That's going to be Dak Prescott from the Dallas Cowboys. So not only do we know that he's going to be gone for multiple weeks because of the injury, but he also hasn't been performing. He's only had 2 games this season where he's had 20-plus fantasy performances. And because of how deep the position is at quarterback, you can even make way by streaming one, whether it's Jameis Winston in the right matchup, Trevor Lawrence even. I just think that there are better options that will make it easy for you to sway and drop Dak Prescott. This next one feels like more of an emotional one. I don't know if I truly, fully believe it, but I'm going to say it anyways. I think you got to drop Jalen Waddle. And the reason why I'm saying that is because Waddle has only had 1 game where he's had over 46 receiving yards. He had a touchdown in this game, but he has been horrendous. I mean, since week 2 to week 9, he's only averaged 7 points per game, being wide receiver 73. And then I drafted him in the 2nd round, so I obviously was banking on his ceiling, but just that hasn't been the case. So Waddle for me is someone that you need to consider putting on your bench for sure. And if you are in a smaller league where, a 10-team league, I would not bat an eye if you were to drop him because of how bad he's been playing. Okay, so now we're on to the most important part of the video, and that's going to be the players you should be adding. And the first one you should be adding is going to be Tyler Allgeier from the Atlanta Falcons. Currently, he's only rostered in 49.5% of ESPN leagues. This past week, he had 6 rushes for 18 yards, 1 touchdown, and that isn't anything too crazy, but however, I think he's just showcasing the value that he has as a handcuff, and he has shown productivity whenever he's gotten touches. And there's a stat over here too as well. Allgeier has averaged 15.1 fantasy points per game in games where he has received 16 plus touches. So if anything were, God forbid, to happen to Bijan Robinson, you know that Tyler Allgeier is someone that can be a plug and play option in this roster and also do well for your fantasy team. The other player I want you to consider adding is going to be Odunze. Now he's rostered in 56.3% of ESPN leagues. He's now had his 2nd 100 plus receiving yard game of the season, and he's also now coming off 3 of his last 4 games where he has had 6+ targets. So we know that Keenan Allen is someone that I told you that you should be dropping, and with that we're seeing Odunze getting an uptick in work. Obviously DJ Moore has been also very disappointing. So for me, Odunze looks to be the one that may be cashing in and actually getting productivity there with Caleb Williams. Hey guys, real quick, we have 3 more players to go over, but before we do so, most of you are not subscribed, so do me a solid. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're getting value. Now let's go on to these last 3 players. Okay, this next player is going to be Xavier Legette for the Carolina Panthers. He's currently only rostered in 32.6% of ESPN leagues. He's now had 2 straight games where he's had 6+ targets as well as a touchdown. Now, I'm not advocating saying that he's going to be getting a touchdown every single game, but I do like the target share. I like where this is headed. He's currently had now his 3rd week where he's coming off a pretty healthy target share. He had 22.6 2 weeks ago, 18.4 last week, and now 23.1%. So we're seeing a lot of good stuff there. And also, I didn't know this, but he's actually currently number 1 among wide receivers in contested catch percentage. So something obviously worth considering and someone also worth adding. Now, this next receiver is more of a deep league addition, but it's going to be Quentin Johnston. He's currently rostered in 21% of ESPN leagues. He had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 118 yards, had a touchdown as well, and it came off a blown assignment, but still, regardless, obviously was able to perform. In his past 6 games, he's had 5 games with 4+ targets. Look, McConkey is still the main guy here. I'm not in any ways advocating that Johnston's going to take anything away from him, but Johnston's still worth the add in deeper leagues, and also McConkey's still a buy low option that you need to look into. And then the last one is going to be Trey Benson from the Arizona Cardinals. He's currently rostered in 15.5% of ESPN leagues, had 8 rushes for 37 yards and a touchdown. This isn't anything glaring that's going to jump out of the stat sheet. However, we like to see the productivity with the limited amount of touches that he had. And look, James Conner has had a great season thus far, but when you look at his career, look, he's never finished a full season healthy, and Trey Benson for me is showcasing that he'd be a great option, especially if he was filling in for James Conner. So Trey Benson is a must-add, especially as a handcuff stash to improve your roster. Hey, thank you so much for making it to the very end of this video. It means the world to me. If you got value in it, do me a solid. Hit the like button as well as subscribe, and if you want some more videos to help you out, check out some of these other ones here on the channel. And in the meantime, in between time, take care. God bless. Peace.